Hi, my name is David, and this is my wife, Clarice. We're both deaf, and I'm sharing my testimony today. I was born hearing, but I got meningitis when I was 2.5 years old. I was in a coma for 3 days, and I almost died. But Jesus didn't let me die. I'm profoundly deaf, and I can't hear anything. Nothing. I'm fully deaf. When I was growing up, I hated being deaf. Through primary school and high school, kids were teasing me and saying, "Oh, I'm deaf and dumb." It made me angry, and I'd punch up the other kids. If you're blind, you're cut off from seeing things. But when you're deaf, you're cut off from communication, and it's hard in the world. I've always been frustrated and angry due to communication difficulties in the hearing world. All my life, I couldn't accept myself as being deaf. I hated being deaf. I've had years of counselling, but I still wouldn't accept myself as being deaf. 2 weeks ago, I went to have an operation on my eyelids in the hospital. The anaesthetist put me to sleep, and she noticed my blood pressure was dropping very low and very quickly. And she noticed something was wrong. I had an anaesthesia anaphylaxis. That's a severe, life-threatening allergic reaction. They gave me some adrenaline in my body to bring my blood pressure up. The doctors called an ambulance for emergency, and 4 ambulance paramedics took me to Royal North Shore Hospital into intensive care. When our interpreter texted me, the specialist asked her to tell me to come to the hospital that morning. The specialist seriously needed to speak with me in person over what had happened to David. I started worrying and feeling upset. I stopped eating my lunch when video chatting with my interpreter. I quickly drove to the hospital where David stayed for the eye operation. I said to the Lord,
Jesus, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I don't know what to do without David. But God is my creation. Sejan istedi neve antekhain. Please help me. Please was eating all the stuff. Of his hiding peaceful. I said to myself, Swan Jesus. Swan Jesus. That's how I know David returned back to me, to us.
I was unconscious for 12 hours, from 9 o'clock in the morning to 8:30 at night. I woke up at 8:30 and I felt very drowsy. I didn't have an Auslan interpreter with me. The nurses tried to communicate with me by writing with a paper and pen. Because I was so drowsy, I was really frustrated and angry having to communicate, trying to write on paper. Over a few hours, gradually, the drowsiness reduced. And the nurse asked me if I was in any pain, and I said no. But I was building up anger and frustration with everything. My eyelids hadn't had the operation, and by midnight, the nurse told me, go to sleep, but I couldn't sleep. I still felt angry, and I hated that angry feeling inside me. So I decided to call Jesus. Jesus, Jesus. I asked Jesus, why am I feeling this awful feeling of anger inside me? Jesus spoke to me very clearly in my mind. He said, let go, David. Let go, David, 3 times. He said, you've been angry all your life since you were a little boy. He said, I am your friend. I remember my counsellor told me a number of times through counselling before that when you go through trauma, you will experience painful moments. Anger was my mechanism all my life. It was my flight and fight mode all my life. I never knew how to be sad. While lying on the hospital bed and talking to Jesus, I was feeling the heavy and very painful load on my chest of all of my life, feeling angry. All my life feeling angry. It was an awful feeling for a few minutes. Then the heavy load was lifted off my chest. Then I felt peace, and I had tears running down my face. The next morning, my sign language interpreter came at 10 o'clock. Then my anaesthetist came. The anaesthetist wanted to explain to me what had happened. It was a really scary experience for her. She said I could have died. I gave her a hug, and I said to her, God's not finished with me. Later, Pastor Don came with my wife Clarice and Jade, and he drove us home. Jesus is not finished with me. My family needs me here. I'm a carer for my severely brain-injured wife Clarice from her 2009 bike accident, with her memory problems 6 months after we were married. Clarice could have died. While in the emergency department, I called Jesus. Why? Why? Jesus said to me very clearly in my mind, Clarice will be fine. Clarice will be fine. I was in total shock from a really scary experience. I couldn't understand what Jesus said to me at that time because Clarice was in a very serious situation. Clarice was in hospital for 3 weeks, then rehab for 1 month. Then she came home. And it was in a very short time. Then I realised and remembered what Jesus had said to me before. Clarice will be fine. The following year, we had our first baby. Jesus is not finished with my wife. While Clarice was in an induced coma for 1 week in the hospital, Jesus spoke to her, "You will go back to David." I'm a carer for my Down syndrome sister who lives downstairs in our house. Our 2 hearing daughters, aged 13 and 7, need us. Thank you, Jesus. And I pray that my ears will be healed so I can hear if it is Jesus' will.